Hello SGD. In this video I've taken two other videos, Mastercrafts Part 6 Stonemasonry and Hands Dublin Stonecutters, trimmed them down and put them together. The longest parts will be from the Mastercraft series, where 3 people apply for a stonemason apprenticeship, so they're entering with 0 skills and they're led through the basic introduction to the basics of stonemasonry, making a flat surface and making an ovolo, and going through the process. And then I've intercut that with the Dublin Stonecutter series. So the Mastercrafts one, they're going to be working with sandstone, but you'll also see people working with marble and with granite. And well, these are all, from the age of film, so they're working with Iron Age tools. Links in the description to people doing experiments with stone tools and copper tools to work with the same equipment. So if you're going to go, but they're using iron tools, well, okay, links there in the description. But it's the skills and the development of the skills by these masons. And just to contrast that to the, it's impossible, and how did they do these? How did they make a flat surfaces? These are, as you'll see, apprentice level skills that these people acquire.
Masonry yard. Andy Oldfield is the senior mason, and his job is to ensure that the upkeep of the hall is to the standards of the generations of masons who went before him.
Andrew.
Hello there.
Hello, I'm Monty.
Nice to meet you.
I found you. And what does your basic work consist of? I mean, what's the stock in trade?
Well, these are little delicacies, but mainly it's keeping the weather out of the building. If the stones are structurally starting to fail, then we take them out sympathetically without damaging anything else around it, taking detailed records and making a new one and popping it back in.
You make it sound so easy.
It's as simple as that, really.
When I was watching you as I came in, you were chiselling away. How does it work?
It all depends on what we're approaching. If we're doing the fine delicate work, we're virtually shaving and taking it down in layers, more so than trying to break off large bits. Stone's fragile, even though we think it's tough. It's fragile, and we have to treat it with respect.
Hello, I'm Monty.
Hello, I'm Suzanne.
Suzanne?
Nigel.
Nigel, nice to meet you.
Over the next 6 weeks, the trainees will learn the fundamentals of stonemasonry, from the initial ability of using a hammer and chisel to create flat surfaces on a raw slab of rock, right through to intricate carving. But before our trainees can start carving, they're going to begin by sourcing their raw material from Hardwick's own quarry.
This is your...
Every single stone in the hall, past and present, has been quarried on site at Hardwick.
We want to be trying to keep it as straight as we possibly can.
And in this tradition, Simon, Nigel and Suzanne will cut the stone that they will be working on using an industrial rock drill.
Did you feel the stone responding?
Yeah, it went in really fast, much faster than I expected. I expected you have to really push, but you don't. It just drops down a hole. Amazing.
If they thought that stonemasonry was all about art and craft and the finesse of carving, Andy has destroyed any idea of that. He's brought them straight away here to the quarry. It's muddy, it's noisy, it's hard work, and it's all about splitting stone.
That's it. How's that?
It was phenomenal, seeing it break along the fissure lines. It was a real surprise.
Yeah.
But I've never worked with stone, so I didn't really know what to expect.
Walsh's Granite Quarry. That was aiming, drilling the holes. We're getting ready now to cut out a block of granite. The metal feathers are inserted into the holes and the plugs are put in. And the tapping will start now any second. There we go, with the music on the xylophone. But the quarrymen are very skilled men. They're all craftsmen to their fingertips. You know the way the birds pick the right straw and the right moss for the nest? Well, the quarrymen cut the granite out of the exact spot in the bed of the quarry. Here's the crowbars in now.
Put the chain around it now.
Colin Walsh, Tom Glennon and Eamon getting this hunk of granite out. But you look at the traditions they have. The skills of the Doyles and the Shakespeares and the Morgans and the Malones. There was that many of the Doyles that worked the stone that they had to have nicknames for them. The Flyer Doyle, the Horseman Doyle, the Tosser Doyle, the Dresser, the Gigger, the Daddy Doyle. And then there was the Malones, Jem, the Jem Malone, the Weasel Malone, the Peddler Malone, and a whole host of names.
Okay.
But this is the last time any of them will be picking up a power tool for a while. They must first get to know and understand the material using nothing but simple hand tools. So they and the stone head to the workshop in the stonemason's yard, which is known as the banker's shop.
Welcome to the banker shop. Roll it over.
The first skill that our trainees have to master is that of making a flat surface. Now, it doesn't matter what the end design is going to be, whether it's complex with raised relief and curves, or whether it's relatively simple. It is based upon the ability to make a flat surface. With a hammer and chisel, they will have to get it absolutely smooth and flat. And if they can't master that, they will never become a stonemason.
This is the process known in stonemasonry as boning in.
Now, the boning process is the key to all masonry. It was what was done centuries ago and is still done as a learning process for apprentices. I don't know if you notice the tools. Pitcher, punch, claw, chisel. Ones which are rounded have the ball on the end. They're called mallet-headed chisels. Obviously, as the name suggests, it's to be hit. We've got a round mallet and a round head. So as we're hitting and we're slightly changing direction, we get the same surface contact area. A few taps to get you started. The key is rhythm.
First, they must flatten out 4 corners of the stone to create 4 known points that are all at the same level.
They call it mason's eye. It's to use your own eye for a straight level, your own eye for looking how things are. It's not a case of just whacking the stone till bits fall off. It's more about developing the control to remove the stone through discipline and method. That's it. Simple as that. You're in control, you're showing it that you're removing the waste. You have to have the confidence to hit the stone, and that's the key. Pull back, go across.
As with all crafts, the trainees must learn to embrace patience and repetition.
Excellent.
It's a lot harder than I thought. It's a lot slower than I thought.
4, 5, 6. Rhythm.
It's like playing an instrument.
It is. Yeah.
The next day, progress is made, with all 3 trainees having cut and flattened their 4 corners. The next principle is to join these corners together with straight ledges around the edge of the stone, before flattening the rest of the surface by removing the waste material in the middle. All stonemasonry is based upon creating straight lines to make flat surfaces, and the boning in has been an essential initiation for the trainees.
Good morning. I'm afraid it's judgment day.
Armed with the stonemason's unarguable arbiter, the straight edge, Andy checks to see how flat their surfaces are. Nigel's work is the first to be assessed, and he's quietly confident that he's done the job pretty well.
A few little areas what could have been better, but not at this stage of the game. Bad at all.
It's a lot more physical than I was expecting. I mean, I hurt. It's a discipline. It is a proper discipline. You have to do what you're told.
It's Simon's turn next, and although he's more anxious, his results are very good.
Good. Very good, in fact. Nice, regular tooling. Masons of old have been quite proud to have had a flat surface like that. Very good. Well done.
Thank you.
And finally Suzanne, who's unused to working to a deadline in a structured way and hasn't made as much progress as the men.
It's not a race. It's a nice...
Obviously.
It's a nice amble across the stone. No, that's quite good. I reckon another few hours and you'll have got this one sussed, and we can then move on to the next stage.
You know, I go at my own pace, and I know I'm working very hard, and I'll just crack on till the end and get it finished and sorted.
Whilst the trainees continue to wrestle with the basics in the banker's shop, I go off in search of the stonemason's craft at its most sublime. For this, you must surely go to a medieval cathedral, and whilst many are glorious, none is finer than York Minster. Medieval cathedrals were a manifestation of the unchallengeable authority of God and the Church. But to achieve this, the Church required the very human skills of the stonemason.
It is staggering when you consider the breadth of skills that the stonemason craft encompassed when they built these cathedrals, ranging from enormous pillars soaring up to the heavens that compare with any modern skyscraper. Filigree work, as on this stone screen, that is as fine as anything that could possibly be carved in wood. The stonemason was the master of all craftsmen, and it's telling that the master stonemason didn't have to bow to his monarch. And will this be the original work that was put up?
It's very hard to say. A lot of this work is a previous restoration. Because we're using the same stone as it was originally built from, it weathers in the same way as an original stone.
Is there any part of the Minster that is absolutely original and untouched?
Not outside, no. We often say we don't think we're much different than our predecessors who built this in terms of actually physically doing the job. The fine finishing of work's all going to be done by hand.
The Bank of Ireland in College Green is getting a bit of a clean-up. Come back, Speaker Connolly, and see our old Parliament shining like silver in the Dublin sunshine. Hibernia and the statues on top are getting a facelift, and Hibernia herself is having a new arm. Professor Donald Murphy made a model in plaster of Paris of the old arm. And Paddy Rowe, the king of Irish stonecutters, is doing a bang-on job carving out the arm and heads in his workshop up in the Dublin mountains. Paddy comes from a long line of stonecutters. His father Tom and his grandfather and his grandfather too, going back for centuries, keeping up the stone cutting tradition all around Glancullen, Ballyblue, Barnacullia and Ballyedmonds Duff.
Back at Hardwick Hall, the trainees' intense education continues. After 3 days, they've learnt how to create a flat surface. Now they must learn how to shape it by replicating a cornerstone.
We're going to really ramp it up now and make them increase the skill level, but also understand just that first bit of flat surface work was the key to everything.
All restorative stonemasonry requires the ability to replicate the previous mason's work exactly.
This is a template. This is what you would do if you were making a piece of masonry for the hall. You would actually create a template to the stone you're replacing. Using your scriber, mark into the stone.
After drawing the template on both ends of the stone, you then mark out your cut lines.
Stage one is to remove the chamfer.
To create the curved edge of the template, known as the ovolo, the trainees will have to cut a series of flat edges or chamfers across the corner of the stone.
So imagine that will look like a 50 pence with a series of points. And then every time you take a point off with a flat chamfer across another chamfer,
Got less to make
it gets less. And then all of a sudden it will go round.
After taking the ends off and roughing out the middle bit of the waste stone, the group are back on familiar territory.
So I've left with this big rubbly centre which you had on your flat surface. Like we did before, and work in a flat area. Okay, so that's stage one. Prove me you can do it. You know, test yourself, push yourself.
Once they've made their chamfers, Nigel and Simon can move on to learn how to make a fillet, which is a flat strip dividing mouldings, but it requires a high degree of accuracy and control.
The hardest thing to do in masonry is fillets, and that straight line needs to be perfect for it to work. Your master fillets, virtually everything else in masonry becomes a walk in the park.
However, Nigel seems to be rather pleased with himself.
I'm done. Done, and done.
Okay guys, time's up.
After an intensive week and a half grappling with flat surfaces, straight lines, curves and fillets, it's time for their mentor's verdict.
Not too bad at all. Nice. Nice and clean. There's one or two areas where you've nicked underneath and this and that, but on the whole, it's a fantastic result for a short space of time. Under pressure as well, which is what being a mason can be sometimes. You're working to a deadline. Well done.
This is the forge. At one time, they had a blacksmith to do this job, but the stonecutters today make their own tools. This is called upsetting the punch and drawing it out. And the point, I wonder is that where the word upset came from? Upsetting the tool. The unions gave the stonecutters a half an hour to make their tools and to sharpen their tools. Put back into the fire there, drawn out, and dipped into the quencher. But watch this now. Dipped in, quickly withdrawn, rubbed on the ground. Because if they didn't do that, the temper would go right up the punch, and of course, when it would meet the granite, it'd snap off. So it has to be precision tempered all the way.
You need a bit of distance to be able to do that. I want you to go find a corbel, and that's going to be your next task. You're going to produce a corbel.
A corbel is essentially a protruding support for a windowsill whose surface can be carved and decorated. And Andy has the group have a good look at those on the building. As with all the work they've done so far, the nature of the challenge facing the trainees is not to express themselves, but accurately replicate the work of the masons who've gone before them at hard work.
This is the master copy, which we take all our datum information off, and this is what I want you to make.
Andy would normally give an apprentice 3 days to make a corbel, but given their lack of experience, he's allowed the trainees twice that time. The job will encompass everything the trainees have learned so far: boning in, filleting and detailed carving, and they need to be done perfectly if their corbel is to make it onto the hall.
A bit concerned about.
After some initial hesitation, the men get on with the robust business of removing waste material.
I've started. That first hit, it's like
But Suzanne is not yet properly stuck in.
Concentrate on waste removal. Confidence, waste removal, get you down there.
By mid-morning the following day, both Nigel and Simon are already beginning to create the distinctive outline of their corbels. Suzanne, however, is lagging way behind.
You've gone back to a bit more where you're just tickling the surface. Just go back to a bit more that aggressiveness for getting that waste away. A bit more grunt, that's what I want.
Despite this advice, Suzanne seems happier to tread her own primrose path.
This is the nice part, this is the kind of mellow part, which I really enjoy doing, so there's no grunt involved in this one.
Well, however they go about it, there's no doubting that it is hard graft.
my hands are tired and my arm aches and my neck hurts. And it's just killing me. I'm in agony.
My chisel hand is just feels like a claw.
I thought I'd be used to it by now.
Punching out the eroded Portland stone. The Brady brothers, Kit and Joe, a lifetime in the trade. The old foot protection there. Cleaning up pilasters there with the chisel and the wooden mallet. The old smoke. And boasting a chamfer on the Bank of Ireland in College Green.
Even though people view it as like an art form because it's really intricately worked, it's a craft, it's a skill. And what we need to do is break away from the artistic side sometimes and deal with it as though it's a job. Right, close the day today, complete, focus, one day, one job. And then we'll move on.
Okay.
Sound.
Okay, big improvement. We've got his fillet formed, we've got his waist off, a few high points, but nothing to worry about. Excellent. Well,
Right, so we'll start with Simon's Corbel. You see, it looks fantastic to me.
It does. You've had a reasonable stab at it, Simon. Needs cleaning up somewhat. Some of the lines are not that crisp, and some of the angles are not square.
So what you're saying is where you have any straight line, any angle, they've got to be as near damn perfect as you can get.
Yep, and they've got to be crisp.
Could that either go as it is or be worked on to go as it is onto the hall?
No, on both counts.
Okay. At least you know where you are.
No, I expected it. I expected it.
Right, let's move on to the next one. How's this?
It looks very, very clean. Other than the lines again, not got that crispness. And if you can see, they're not quite equal.
That angle
Yep.
changes halfway across, doesn't it?
Yep. So, you know, it's small things like that. And I think the sinking needs to be cut deeper. I mean, you know, with probably another couple of hours on this, deepen that, just sharpen these lines up a bit, and yeah, excellent effort. It could be to a standard that we could use on the building.
Well, that's a result, isn't it?
Yep, very good. Yep.
Dublin's Custom House, James Gandon's glory. Hibernia there on top, watching the ships coming into the Dublin port. Edward Smith's Riverheads, representing the 13 principal rivers in Ireland and the Atlantic Ocean. The central bank, some fine carved stonework around the doorway. How about that for a work of art? The carved capitals on the old Munster and Leinster Bank in Dame Street. And a nice bit of shamrock there for St. Patrick's Day. John O'Shea's Monkeys. They're playing that game down in the Kildare Street Club for the last 125 years.
Work has been focused on replicating and repairing existing work. But what of contemporary stonemasonry? Is there scope for creating original work?
Here I am, standing outside a modern, very busy stonemason's yard, and I can't hear a single clink of a chisel. In fact, the sound is dominated by the roar and whir of grinders. So, what's going on? Is this the true face of 21st century stonemasonry, or is this something else altogether?
Atelier 109 was formed 4 years ago by Pierre Bidot, a fully qualified stonemason. He specialises in designing and making cantilevered stone stairs by combining traditional skills with the most modern power tools. Whether this is a refinement or corruption of the stonemason's craft, I'm not yet sure.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Yes, let's go.
Well, I have to say, coming from the sort of almost reverential atmosphere of a conventional stonemason's yard, this is quite a shock to the system.
We are a commercial workshop, so we have a very picketed deadline, and to meet them we need to use modern technology to be more efficient.
Is the inevitable consequence of this that the old skills and the old tools simply are no longer relevant?
Obviously we are using the machine as much as possible, but for all the finest detail and so on, we need still the finishing touch as still to be applied by hand. There are tools that make certain stages quicker, and you've got to use this tool to make it viable economically.
It would be possible for Pierre to replace his workforce with a computerized system, which in theory could do the job just as well as them. So why doesn't he take that logical step?
My guys, they are finishing their work very, very well, just because there is a quality and because there is passion behind it.
There's no doubt that when I talk to Pierre's masons, the passion and individual craftsmanship is still there. I had great doubts when I first saw the setup here. I thought that this perhaps was the wrong side of the coin. This was a loss of the craft and skills through using power tools. But actually, I'm convinced that this is a viable future for stonemasons. They're still using the basic skills. You can't just pick up a grinder and cut stone. You really need to know how it works. You need to have those skills that you get through a hammer and chisel. And I'm sure the people that built Hardwick Hall would have used grinders if they had been there to be used.
Balti Boys Graveyard, the final resting place of the remains of all the stonecutters. Many of them who designed and cut their own stones several years before their deaths. But their stones will live on. You never pass down a road or a street or a graveyard without seeing the work of all the great stone carvers and cutters of Ireland. Mica sparkling in raw granite, and the same granite after dressing, cutting and cleaning. Paddy McHugh and Christy Dunn setting a granite block in the wall of the Bank of Ireland. Paddy too comes from a long line of stonecutters. In fact, his father was in that photograph that we were looking at. It was taken back there in 1910. They will spirit level up now. How about that for craftsmanship? Egg and dart design. A smooth finished column.
The trainees are now 4 weeks into their 6-week intensive training and gearing up for their final project, which is to design and carve a sundial, the best of which may be judged good enough to remain permanently in the grounds of Hardwick Hall. This is altogether a much more difficult task, and Suzanne has got to finish this. This is not an exercise in procedure, it's actually a finite object with a finite delivery date. And remember, the winner will have their sundial in the gardens here at Hardwick, and that is, make no bones about it, a huge honour. Suzanne has chosen to recycle part of an old Hardwick gatepost as part of her piece.
That kind of adds to the whole kind of part of the piece. I think that's really nice.
She seems to be highly motivated by the creative freedom of this final task, but she's also contrived to make life a little difficult for herself.
Apparently the ball sphere in stonemasonry is one of the most difficult forms to make, and that is a challenge for me. That's a real challenge, and I love geometric forms anyway. I use them all the time in my design.
Nigel is making this stone into the base of his sundial, which will have voluted ramps spiralling up to the centre. The group all set to with a will, using the full range of hand skills that they've learnt so far. And Andy is finally letting them use power tools as well, as all three designs involve a huge challenge just to complete in time, and is measured. Meanwhile, Suzanne has finished carving her bowl-shaped top section, as well as making real progress with the stand that will support it.
The speed of how I work now is really improved, and well, it just goes to show really, because it's only taken me 1.5 days to do this, and this is quite a large piece.
Over the final few days, the trainees go flat out to finish their sundials to as high a standard as possible. They've each gone to the limits of their ability, not just using the skills they've been...
Tom Glennon working on a granite altar for a church up in County Monaghan. Tom is known in the trade as the finest cutter of letters. And his father before him. Tom served his time with the famous Michael Biggs. The old distemper brush has many uses. Rainwater today and baptismal water tomorrow.
Taught, but also risking trying a few new ones too.
The amount of stonemasonry in this, the skills of stonemasonry, from a volute to a finial, these are all examples of things that we've learned. I think one or two of the other ones are lacking some or all of the skills that we've learned.
While Nigel seems certain that his superior skills should make him the rightful winner, Simon has a rather more generous view.
I was just speaking to Andy and the others, and to be honest with you, I think if I had to choose one of them to win, it would be yours.
Oh, don't you get me crying.
And I didn't think so at first, when I first saw it, but with the metal and the pool of water in it, I think that's just such a good idea. So, yeah. But I hope you don't. But
Phil O'Neill, the pride of Barnacullia, designing a rosette on white Carrara marble. That marble comes all the way from northern Italy. Look at that. And you thought craftsmen were dead. This is the side piece of a mantelpiece. And in a second or two, you'll see the centrepiece. There's the centre now getting a rub down with the felt to give it that nice polished finish. Now that's a job that would please the eye of Bossy and Adam. The Stapletons and the Wests and all them people could nearly come back to Dublin and see all the skills being carried out today under the expert eye of a Dublin craftsman.
And now move it back again, yeah, that's the sort of thing.
What's the water for?
So I wanted to get a different texture from the stone, and then the kind of glaze of the water, but also the birds can use it to drink out of.
How does it relate to the house?
I've taken this curve, which is called the cyma recta, and I've used it as part of the base design. I've done a tight curve on this side, but also keeping this right angle. I thought that was quite a nice contrast.
Are you happy with it? Now you've done it?
I'm very happy with it, yeah. I'm quite surprised, actually. I've got quite high standards in my own work, and I think this is okay. I like it. It's really good.
Okay, Paul has come to a decision, which he will explain.
They've all been really, really good. You've all done really, really well. And the effort you've put in then to remove the stone is unbelievable. I do have to choose one, and that decision was made on not necessarily the complexness of the stonework, but because of the simple lines, and that piece is Susan's.
Wow.
Okay.
Well done.
Well done.
Well done.
But again, well done to you all, and I don't think you'll have any problem in progressing and carrying on, hopefully, a lifelong skill.
Here's Paddy now. It's not often you see a man with 3 arms coursing College Green. Hibernia looking down at them traffic lights holding up the arm. But your Hibernia, you've been waiting 150 years for this arm. You can afford to wait a little longer. You see, the Dublin weather plays havoc on the old Portland stone. It's all right now, Hibernia. Here it is. It's all in the bag for you. Up you go. Well, you look at Christy Dunn. He should have been a tightrope walker instead of a labourer. Great head for heights, Christy. Now, if you or I tried to do that across the street, we'd probably fall and break the arm. Not Christy. Here it is. Safe and sound. Mr. Flynn has the unveiling job done. With a big moment. It's not every day of the week that a lady gets a new head and a new arm. I'd say Hibernia is going to be very proud tonight, sitting up there on the top of the Bank of Ireland in all our glory, looking down at all the motor cars and the buses, and looking down at the back of Mr. Grattan's neck. Now, Fidelity, don't be jealous, didn't you get a new face as well? Everything has to be fitted into precision measurement. Jeannie Mac, she's getting a new harp as well. She'll be in right style before the week is out. But I think she wants the arm on first. Of course, she would never be able to play the harp without having the whole arm in order. Uh-oh. Goldsmith and Burke in the front garden at Trinity discussing Hibernia's face. It's a pity Mr. Grattan can't see her, but he never seems to turn around. Hey, Mr. Grattan! Turn around there, Mr. Grattan. There's a fine-looking woman behind you. She's getting a manicure now to finish her off nicely. And Miss Commerce with a new face and a smashing permanent wave. This is the Stonecutters territory. Is that the shadow of a magic carpet I see passing over Creedon's quarry? This is Osborne and Brady country, working away at the Granite, surrounded by spall heaps, standing like Mesolithic cairns and prehistoric graves, memorials in stone, in the words of John Ruskin, to the genius of the unassisted workman. Aye, surely the ghosts of the Burns and the McAvoys, and the ghosts of all the great stonecutters, the Edward Smiths, the John O'Sheas, the Seamus Murphys, pass by this way at night time.